All right, all right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday, and welcome to another episode of Grief. Let's Talk About It podcast. And as always, I have an amazing guest for you guys. Today, I have Dr. Fred Ross, and Dr. Fred Ross is a mental health advocate, psychiatrist, serving in many capacities. He's a keynote speaker, psychiatry expert, witness, podcaster, mental health coach, and teacher. He has a desire to help people be real and heard as has been the driving force leading him to multiple settings and roles as a psychiatrist over the years and compelling him to continually look for better, more effective ways to provide the highest quality care to align people with their most authentic self to help discover into an eagerly awaiting world. He is the amazing creator of Welcome to Humanity. He is the voice course, Healing the Healer and Global Madness. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest today. Dr.
Hey, Tony.
Fred Moss, how you doing this morning? How we doing?
Yeah, good.
Thank you for being on the
It's
show.
Moss. Just to let you know, my last name is Moss, M-O-S-S. You know that, though.
Okay, M-O-S-S, and Moss. I may have been, it may have just sounded wrong, but I thought I was saying it correctly. I do apologize. How you doing this morning? Welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Yes,
Really good to be here.
yes.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right. So tell people where you're from.
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there.
Uh-oh,
Your internet is breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I was saying, tell people where you're from.
Yeah, I'm from Grass Valley, California, Northern California, the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas.
Oh, wow. That's pretty out there this time of year, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
All right. Well, man, you have a very impressive background. Tell people about the work that you do.
Yeah, so I like to call myself a transformational restorative coach. And this is something that has happened on the heels of a long career as a psychiatrist. I've been a psychiatrist for over 30 years. I've been in mental health, actually officially, for over 40 years. I started off in mental. You okay there, Tony?
Yep, I'm okay.
All right, we're having some technical difficulties. It looks like.
Yeah, we'll push through it though. It'll be all right.
All right, no problem. So yeah, I was in mental health. I started off as a child care worker in 1980 at a state mental health facility for adolescent boys. And I did that after dropping out of college a couple times. And why did I drop out of college a couple times? Because I've known my whole life that communication is where the action is. That's where the meat is. That's where the money is. Communication and human connection is at the heart of all healing, of all human conditions, of all types, everywhere. Yes. And I've known that since I was a kid. And frankly, Tony, you've probably known that too. You've known that what you really wanted more than anything was to connect with the other kids on the block, connect with your family, connect with your friends, connect with your family's friends. This has been an important feature of life ever since the very beginning. And we know that that's where healing emanates from. Yes. I didn't learn how to connect to people when I was in school. And you don't learn that in school. In fact, you learn to sit down in your chair and be quiet and regurgitate whatever the teacher tells you to regurgitate in order to pass to the next grade.
Very true.
That is the furthest thing from communication. There's not open discourse in school at all. You really just learn to sit down, be quiet, and follow directions, and then say whatever it is they want you to say. This is not what communication is about. And I learned that over and over again in school, like we all did, until I finally became intolerant of it and decided that I needed to leave college at University of Michigan. I left and I went across the country to Berkeley, California, where I could actually find myself. And I did find myself in Berkeley that summer, but it was an unsustainable thing. I was working, in a youth hostel, and I really discovered a lot about who I am and why I am who I am. But I eventually decided to go back to college on the recommendation from my mom and dad and my brothers. I had two brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. They still do. They're still 10 and 14 years older than me. And I aspired to be like them. And I was born into a family with them already here. And there was already chaos and disarray in my house. And that's where communication really set in. I was born to be a communicator. I was born to bring a whole new level of compassion and love and joy into that family that was having some trouble. And I did a pretty good job for a little while. And then ultimately, this idea, maybe my brothers wouldn't say I did a good job my whole life, and I think they wouldn't. It's fine. And I ended up really being a real staunch advocate for communication at any level, self-expression and communication. So going back to what happened, and when I dropped out of school, I went back to school one more time and learned something about this new industry that was breaking through. It was in 1978, and the new industry was called computers. And the only computer in all of Michigan was at the University of Michigan. So I went back to the University of Michigan to learn about computers, and I didn't like that either. So there was punch cards and batch jobs, and you had to stay all night to make programs, and that wasn't going to work for me. So when I dropped out the second time, I said out loud that I was not going back to school for any reason whatsoever. But my mom is like, okay, well, you got to get a job, and she got me an application for this state mental health facility. And that's where I learned for real, like that I can get paid to communicate. I can get paid. I can actually make a living communicating with these kids. And healing takes place in all directions when you connect with somebody. These kids are only, 6 or 7 years younger than me, and the connection was beautiful, and I loved that job. In fact, I like to say that I'm a glorified childcare worker, even 42 years later. This is really what I am. I just picked up an MD degree on the way. And the way that I picked that up was by going back to school and deciding that I was going to be a psychiatrist, unlike any other psychiatrist I had ever met. The idea here was I was going to bring communication and connection to the heart of healing, rather than the direction that psychiatry was going, which was bringing, medications and chemical and physical restraints to the psychiatric mental health or mental illness world. So I went on and did that. I went back to school and finished off my undergraduate degree, and then went to medical school in Chicago. And that's where I ended up doing my work. And that, and from there I became a psychiatrist. I pretty much knew that I was going to do a residency and a fellowship in psychiatry. And that's what I did, got a child and adolescent fellowship. And from that time forward, I was sent into a typecast, if you will, meaning I was actually put forth as someone who was called on to diagnose and then medicate people. And these were things I didn't like doing for most of my career. Almost every time that I diagnosed someone, and certainly every time I medicated someone, there was a part of me that my heart broke or my soul sacrificed. And I knew better than to think that that was a best thing to do, or that I wasn't, I wasn't sure I wasn't doing no harm. Of course, as a doctor, we take an oath, first do no harm. And it always hurt me like maybe I was doing harm, because I learned that these medicines don't do what they say they're going to do, and instead often cause or perpetuate or increase the symptoms they're marketed to treat. From that point forward, I kept going and learned how to, take care of people, infusing communication into what I was doing, meaning along with diagnosing and medicating these things I didn't like doing, I also brought communication the best that I could into the relationships. And this was very helpful. And I learned in 2006, with no uncertain terms, through a little experiment that I did, that I was really very correct, meaning I started taking people off of medicine, Tony. And this was something that was thought to be entirely radical. I took people, some of my patients, my low risk patients, I took them right off their medicine. And lo and behold, they got way better. I mean, they got way better. Oftentimes, losing the diagnosis that they had had for a couple of decades. So it was like very clear to me that the medicines and the diagnoses were not doing a service to my clients. And I started really backing off of
Right.
doing that as a primary way of doing medicine or primary way of doing psychiatry. So from 2008 to about 2016, I did a lot of work all over the country. I became a traveling doctor and worked in many different states: Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, California, and continued to do what I could to be an advocate for communication and connection at the heart of healing. But in all those jobs, they still wanted me to diagnose and medicate. So I had to do that as well, even though it was truly a heart pain for me to do that. I did it anyways, and eventually realized that it was time for me to back out completely and start doing something different. And that's when I began the Welcome to Humanity movement. The idea being that if you have uncomfortable experience, if you're in pain or misery or discomfort or imbalance or dysfunction of any type, there might not be anything wrong with you. The world is a crazy place. Have you noticed that, Tony?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
The
I
world is a
have, man.
crazy
Especially
place.
with the
You
way
know,
that
it's
everything
okay.
is going around,
Yeah,
the world has changed.
yeah. It's a crazy place, and it's okay to be uncomfortable in this world. You know, it's
Right.
okay to be afraid, really afraid. It's okay to be anxious, really anxious. It's okay to be depressed, really depressed. These are the proper human responses to what's going on in our world, not just on a
Yes.
global scale, but maybe in the community or maybe in your family or maybe in your relationship. It's totally okay to be uncomfortable. When you start incorporating that into the world, it changes psychiatry drastically, because
Yes.
psychiatry is presently built on the notion that if you're uncomfortable, there's something wrong with you. That's
Wow.
the theory here, right? Like if you're
Yes.
depressed, there's something wrong with you. If you're afraid, there's something wrong with you. If you're anxious, there's something wrong with you. We got a pill for you. We got a treatment for you. We got an intervention for you. But that is not the way it is. When you really look at it, misery is a key part, a key component of what it is to live a real life on this world. And
Mm.
even the Buddha said it, and Jesus said it, and all the philosophers have said it. No one has ever said that misery isn't a key part of life. It's okay to be miserable. It's just part of being human. When you start to really realize that, it kind of undoes psychiatry as a field. All of a sudden, so many reasons why people go into, as a patient into psychiatry, people go to think that there's something wrong with them when they're feeling bad about the world. But maybe there's nothing wrong with these people. Maybe that's the proper response to the world experience that they're having. And that's what
Right.
Welcome to Humanity is about. Now, I wrote my books about self-expression. My books are like the creativity book, Creative 8, is written about multiple ways to self-express over and above just talking and listening like we're doing today. And the other book, called Find Your True Voice, actually uses podcasting as a template. The idea of being really rediscovering what's at the heart of your soul, what's in the core of your values, who are you really, and then kind of digging deep into finding that person and then delivering it effectively, honestly, genuinely, authentically into a world that is eager to hear it. And that's what I now am a stand for. So I call myself a transformational restorative coach, and also the undoctor. The undoctor is someone who undiagnoses, unmedicates, and then undoctrinates these people, meaning I've worked myself out of a job. That's my success story. I like to see people and for a few months, and then have it be that they don't need to see me or any mental health worker after that. That basically
Right.
we help them heal, help them realize that even feeling bad, along with feeling great, is part of the human experience. We reorganize and reconceptualize and recontextualize life so that people start seeing that who they are is perfect just like they are. And it includes the people who are really uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is part of humanity. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be completely confused, completely scattered, completely aimless. It's okay to feel hopeless or afraid or anxious all of those things. They're normal human experiences. It's
Right.
really okay. And maybe mental illness can take on an entirely new definition, and we can transform the narrative of what it means to be mentally healthy and mentally ill. You know, we have a couple new things going on in the world with AI and with psychedelics. You know, these things are altering what it means to be a normal human being. And that's really, really important to incorporate into our future. What does it mean to be a normal human being? We don't know. We've never defined normal in a way that works. So if we don't know what normal is, then we definitely don't know what abnormal is. And yet we walk around discussing what is abnormal, and we pretend to treat people who are abnormal. But generally what abnormal is just different than the diagnoser.
Now,
you know, that's how abnormal.
I love that you said that, because including psychedelics, and I've done extensive research with people who work with veterans with PTSD and things like that, and they prescribe them microdose mushrooms, right? And you see the difference in how they react in the world and how they function in the world, because they do come back with a lot of mental damage, so to speak, right? But as you said, you know, what's normal, what's abnormal. The thing that I've always had, and you hit it on the head, and I just want to touch base on it a little bit. Everyone I know in the mental health field, they were quick to diagnose people and say, "Oh, we need to put you on X amount of pills to do this." And then I saw the damage that it was doing. So I too am a certified mental health practitioner, and I used to work in the field. And I finally, you know, after seeing everything, I backed off of it. And I said, "No, you need to do your job. Right? Maybe what you're doing right now is taking a shortcut and saying, oh, we don't know what to do. So what we're going to do is just prescribe you all of these millions of things." And I seen that it was having a really bad effect on the people that they kept giving them to. You know, the people would start off, you know, go, "Oh yeah, I feel better." But then when you see them again, they're looking like zombies walking around. That's no sort of quality of life for anyone. And I agree with what you said. Communication is key. Learning to sit down, effectively talk to them, and then being able to help them move through what they're going through, and saying, "Hey, what you're going through is totally normal." Right?
Exactly.
It's totally normal, as you said, to be anxious, to be depressed, and things like that. What I've done, and this is just for me, I've realized that most of these things were they were carried on from childhood to adulthood and things like that, and it was always something that they were trying to mask, you know, like hidden trauma, abuse, all of those different things. So learning how to walk through the human mind and going and saying, "Hey, instead of doing this, let's focus on getting these things dealt with and learning how to communicate effectively, so we know how to move backwards and get all of those things healed, so you can become the person that you feel that you are inside."
Exactly. Well said. Perfectly well said. You know, I couldn't have said it better. The idea here is that all you really have to do is move the things out of the way that are in your way of becoming the person you know yourself to be.
Right. And that is, you know, like in my field of work, you know, working with grief and especially with men, I've had to learn how men communicate without communicate, right? So how they express ourselves, how we express ourselves, and things like that. I go, you know, you ever seen a man cry? And most people go, "No, I really haven't." And I go, "Well, what are things that you do see?" And it's always been this commonality, the anger. So I put two and two together. I said, of course, you're seeing a man cry all the time, because the one thing that we're taught when we're children is not to express our emotions. We're taught to man up, to, you know, figure it out and things like that. We're not taught how to be emotional and things like that. So the one thing that we do resort to, that when we are faced with a difficult situation or having hard times dealing with something, we resort to the anger. And I go, there it is. So we need to figure out, you know, saying what sort of anger are they expressing? And I realized there's different levels to it, especially in the mental health aspect of it, right? No medication. Let's figure out what you're angry about. And then we can figure out, how to get you to effectively communicate. And that's where, just like yourself, that's where I work with men at, learning how to effectively communicate what's going on with you so you can express through your own human emotions to other people, so they know how to support you and walk with you as you begin to go into this unfamiliar territory.
Exactly. Well said again, Tony. Really great. You do great work. I totally appreciate your assessment of the situation.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you touched on something with the way that the world is nowadays. And I just want to ask, from your perspective, what have you seen, how it affects? Because we'll talk about how it affects the individual, but how is it affecting the communities that you work in?
Yeah, so it is, let's keep in mind, it's not the circumstances themselves that are affecting the community. It's our responses to the circumstances.
Yes,
right?
well said.
So life is happening. Like life is happening every day, and it's happening, and it's happening, and it's happening. And some things are totally terrifying, and some things are totally beautiful, and some things are totally anger producing, and some things are totally depressing. And some things are, kind of like very hopeful. And some things are complete disarray and disorganization. And some things are, again, disorganizing, like discombobulating of some degree. And so this life just keeps happening and asks us to take control of it. What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to get through the day? So what I see is there's a lot of people who don't know how to get through the day.
Yes.
Welcome to humanity is where we go there. It is nothing wrong with you if you can't figure out how to get through this day. There's nothing wrong with you. You were not equipped with tools to figure out how to go through the days that we are now being served up day after day after day.
I love that.
We were never taught how to deal with what we have to deal with now. Of course, we were never taught. It was never like this. Now, this is not something special about the present day. I want to bring to your audience the notion that people have always been in the craziest of times. So 10 years ago, it was the craziest it had ever been. 20 years ago, it was the craziest it had ever been. 50 years ago, it was the craziest it had ever been. 100 years ago, it was the craziest it had ever been. It's always been the craziest that it's ever been. It just gets crazier.
This is true. I agree. I definitely agree.
Right. And if you go back into the ancient times, it was the craziest it had ever been back then, too. The end of the world was imminent all these times. People have always spoken about this just happened. Now the end of the world is upon us. Now the end of the world is upon us. And, the Bible speaks of the end of the world. And that's, we're going back a long ways for the writing of the Bible. People have always been concerned about the end of the world being imminent. Now, the thing I don't want to do is minimize that the end of the world is imminent. It is so very clear that we are one push button away from the end of the world.
Yes.
And that AI could be a real threat to humanity, or that the wars that are going on around the world could spread to your home and my home, or that, riots in the streets could happen, or economies could break down, or governments could break down, that there could be a world war, that all these things are entirely possible. You do not have to have a very broad imagination to understand that all these things are entirely possible outcomes. Yes. But here's the other point. There's another possible outcome here that is worth at least considering, and that is that we actually get through this one way or another, and that there's something on the other side that's closer to peace, or closer to a collective, closer to a consciousness of humanity. It's possible. It doesn't look very likely day after day, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Not the way things are going. It doesn't look like we're going to grow together as one unit, beautiful unit called humanity. It doesn't look like that's the direction that we're going. But, we're not very good at predicting the future. That's for sure.
That's very true.
Wild and crazy things can happen. well beyond our imagination. Now, in this case, it sure does look like it's going to take a miracle beyond our imagination to have anything like that happen, to unify humanity.
Yes.
In my award-winning article called Global Madness, What We Must Do to Unite, I mentioned the possibility that something like a Martian invasion might be enough to actually get us to coalesce as a one unit. I now do not think that a Martian invasion would be enough. I don't. If the Martians were, if there was Martians out there and we knew that they were going to land like 45 days from now, we would, I'm not positive that humanity has it in them to actually start working together to take down those Martians so that the Earth can continue. In the past, I used to think that might, my article suggests that it might not be enough, but it might be enough to unify. Can you imagine 8 billion human beings actually working step by step with each other to take down a particular trauma or a particular threat? Okay. And actually delegating our strengths. So we let the Germans do that. We let the Japanese do that. We let the Chinese do that. We let the Russians do that. And then inside of those different countries, they delegate so that the superstars in this area are actually given a place in the project that actually coincides with what they do best. Like something like that would be really beautiful if we could just start tapping the strengths of everyone, including the people that we disagree with. We are in a funny state that if we disagree with one topic with another person, we completely dismiss that person. This is what humans are doing. If you voted for that person and not my person, I can't listen to you about anything anymore. If you think that about climate change, I can't think to you anymore with you. If you think that about vaccines or COVID, I can't align with you. If you think that about, even racism or sex trafficking or the wars, like whose side are you on in the wars? If you think that, then I dismiss you as an entire human being, as if nothing else you have to say matters because you voted for that person or you're on that team's side or that country's side in a particular war. We are self-destructing at a very, very high level. Now, what is a human to do when they're looking at that? If you have a stake in the matter of the future of humanity, one thing you can do is be totally terrified or totally depressed or totally helpless. That's okay. That's one of the choices. It's a choice. Right. It's one of the choices. It's not the only choice. You could bring your very best self because today is all we have. You could be like, well, you're still breathing, you're still living, just keep bringing your very best self, the self that is the person you want to be. And you could do that, and you don't have to let depression and fear and anger and terror actually run your life, even though they're there. Do you get it? Like you can be terrified, it just doesn't have to run your life. I know that's how I am. I'm terrified, Tony. Of course I'm freaking terrified.
Totally understand. You touched on something that I want to dive into a little bit. First, I want to say good morning to Mario. Mario, it's great to see you here this morning, brother.
Hey, Mario.
Definitely have to catch up soon. And yes, man, great discussion that we're having. Dr. Fred Moss is very intelligent. But I want to touch on something that you said before. What human beings not having the capability of coming together, per se, the example of Martian invasion. Now, there are a few examples up there where we have seen human beings come together in some of the most dire situations, 9/11, right? We've seen people come together. Well, they talk about the unity of human beings coming together, to push slavery out and things like that. So there are some examples, now I agree and disagree in some ways. And, I do agree, or, I want to say that I believe in the human race. And I do believe that if something was to come about that affected all of our lives, right? There will be a time of unity. Maybe it won't last long, but I think it'll last long enough for us to get the job done. Now, I could be wrong, and yes, you are right. There are individuals out there, and I think that's just the human mind working on each other, saying, "Oh, you don't agree with me, so I have to dismiss you," and this, that, and another. And I totally agree. I've seen people like that. I listen to the conversations, and sometimes I have to step back and go, "Wow, this is just a disagreement. Why are you so upset? How come you can't agree to disagree on something? Like the way that you think is not always the right way, right? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe it's the right way for you to think, but it's this person's choice whether or not they agree with you or not. And we as human beings, and this is just me, I'm just saying maybe it's okay to accept that person for who he is. It doesn't make that individual less or more of a human being. It just means that y'all have differences of opinions. And I say to them, when it comes down to those, it's not personal. It's just their own perception of what they believe and what they don't believe. Say, for instance, right? You and I are talking, and maybe we agree on religious aspects, maybe we don't, right? But it doesn't stop having a great conversation because of the simple fact of I believe that our disagreements can be a way for me learning a different perspective of how Dr. Fred thinks, right? And you get to learn a way about how Tony thinks about these different things, and maybe we can come together and go, you know what? Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
That is true. That's just me. I am really good at looking at people and going, hey, I may not agree with you, but that's okay, right? You may not agree with me. That's okay. It doesn't make me think of you less.
Exactly.
It really doesn't. I come to a place where I can accept people for who they are because I do have the understanding that we are all different in so many ways. And I think that's what makes us unique and beautiful in this world, because if everybody was the same, then this would be a very boring place to live,
That's true,
and it's okay, like you said, it's okay for you to be depressed, but let's figure out why you're depressed, right? Let's talk about it. Communication is key, as you mentioned before. Community is key in that aspect as well. The people that you surround yourself with. Now, I think that if you surround yourself with people that make you feel like crap all the time, change the people that you're around. If you can communicate and articulate the things that are going on, but the people around you don't understand, change the people that you're around that speak and can articulate back to you, right? So it's all about finding that tribe and finding those people that that you can relate to, and then being able to go out around the people that you can't relate to be able to have intelligent conversations. And coming up and saying, okay, I now learned something. As you said, this life is full of lessons to learn, and it's a beautiful thing if you look for the lessons to learn.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the things that we're kind of stepping over, though, is the idea that we're at a funny place with people actually expressing themselves as well, because people are afraid to express their real self. I ask people, and the Find Your True Voice book, as well as my True Voice course, really do address this. So the idea is people really have come to the point where they don't speak up. They don't speak their own truth. The crack in the cement has gotten larger and larger. We learned when we were kids that if we embellish a story, then maybe we get the lollipop. Or if we say something that isn't entirely true, there's a short-term gain in that. So we don't always speak our mind. And some of us have now reached the point of actually pretending to be someone that we're not in order to protect the person that we are. This is an absurd, ludicrous, preposterous way to go through life. But we do that. And some people have even reached a point where they are saying things that even they don't agree with. People say things that even they don't agree with. What the hell is that, Tony? That's like beyond lying. Actually representing yourself.
And I agree to what you just said right there. People are afraid to be their authentic selves, right? Like the person that I am is the person I've always been. I cannot say that for everyone, right? But if you're around a person long enough, they in turn show themselves, and that's where I'm right there with you. I step in and go, hey, how about you be that person right there? Because you're a lot more comfortable doing that. And I think a lot of times, and you hit the nail on the head, they are afraid to let people see who they are. Right? They are afraid to show that they have weaknesses and vulnerabilities, that they are afraid, that they are suffering from, that they're struggling with, what I'm saying, what's going on in this world, because everybody wants to be tough. In this world that I've learned, as people, we're continuously competing with one another, right? So say for instance, I do support groups and everything, and one thing I do not allow, when someone is talking, you do not start off your conversation with I, because now you're starting to compare war stories, and when in turn what happens is that you deviate from actually the solutions that we're trying to come up with, and you tend to create more problems. I have to have the worst situation. I have to be better than you. I have to be more of a person than you, and things like that. And you're right. They deviate from who they are and tend to tell tall tales, right? That they don't even believe, but it's a competition aspect of here. We somewhere down inside, it's embedded in us to compete, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to have this, and this, the worst situation, the best life. What I'm saying? Your life is bad, my life is worse, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. So no, I don't tolerate that. No, we eliminate that right there, because of the simple fact of it does not matter. The only thing that matters is what you're doing with your life to better yourself, to be more of who you are meant to be, your more authentic self. Let's get past the cloud. Let's get past all of the things that you put in front of yourselves to mask who you are, and let's pull that off and actually get down to who you are from the core, from your soul.
Exactly. And that's what makes it, when we talk about unifying humanity, that's one of the things that we're going to have to do, is really encourage people to actually be themselves. Because if they're pretending to be someone else, that's not unification. Even they don't even know who they are at that point. They're not even unified within their own self. So that how can they bring someone like that to a unification effort? Really, it's so important that we dig down and get in touch with that authentic self and start expressing ourselves more openly, honestly, genuinely, and authentically to the people in our world that matter to us.
Right.
So taking incremental steps to tell your loved one something that you've never said, or to do something for someone that you've never done that is more aligned with your true self, is one of the aspects that the True Voice course actually treats or teaches. The idea of taking one incremental step beyond where you have ever been before, and start saying things that is really consistent with yourself to the people in your world who have never heard you say that before. But it's been sitting in your core, rotting, essentially, hidden behind a big carpet, a big curtain. And you can bring that out and actually get more in touch with yourself so that people really know who you are. This is a requirement if we're going to actually unify, if we're actually going to connect. If I connect with someone not being their true self, I'm not really connecting with them. I'm connecting with a false version, a counterfeit version of who they are.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better, man. You said it right there. The counterfeit version normally, is what you get, because people are afraid. And I'll say it again, people are just afraid, right? And I think a lot of that can go away. And let me know, or chime in if you want to, but it's holding yourself accountable, right? Saying that, oh man, this really happened to me, or no, because what I found out through mind work and things like that, the brain has a way of distorting reality when you've gone through traumatic experiences, right? No one wants to go around, when it comes down to men and women are more acceptable to tell their counterparts, this is what happened to me when I was younger. I was molested, I was raped, and things like that, right? Men, on the other hand, will say, No, that never happened. Now, the true version of that person, when they say that, and I've understood this for a long time, when they say that, I go, huh, who got you? Right? So
Right.
I'm really straight to the point. I now saw what you just done because I talked to many men before. I used to do it myself, right? And it was a way of me protecting myself from the judgment of other people, right? Because it was hard for me to admit to myself that the things that happened to me. But it wasn't until I got older I said, you know what? No, this is my truth. This actually happened to me. It molded me into the person that I became when I was younger. And I had to go back and clear out all of that junk and address that and go, now I understand where my anger issues came from my trust issues and things like that. And it made me start to forgive myself for the things that I didn't know, begin to step into who Tony was and step into the path that I was on. And I knew right then and there, I had to be downright raw, gritty, truthful with everything. There was nothing else to hide and be vulnerable in the world. And I'm not afraid to say, yeah, man, I get it. I see
Yeah.
you because, for one, I walked a similar path. I cannot say that I understand what you're truly going through, but I can relate to what you're going through. And when you ask me why, I'm gonna be real honest with you. Yeah, I was that dude because and I blamed everybody else for the things that was going on. No longer can I blame them for the choices that I made. Right?
Right.
I now have to hold myself accountable in order to be my true self, my true authentic self in this world.
Exactly. And it does take something. It takes some courage, right? It takes some boldness. It takes
does.
some honesty, authenticity. It really does. You have to be ready to step into a truth that you have already known is there. When we tell an outright lie, we know we're telling a lie.
Right. There's something inside you that says it. Hey, you get that feeling like, ooh.
We have to design the lie. What is it that we actually have to create the lie? We have to design the whole story so that it fits, so that it takes all things into consideration, but is no longer aligned with what really happened.
Right.
So we do our very best to put different paintbrushes and different ideas onto things that we make up entirely to explain away something that otherwise really happened. So
yes.
my point here is that when we tell the truth, it's actually a lot easier. We don't have to remember or create anything. It's just what happened.
Yeah. And we guys, the truth is subjective. Yes, I agree. And I just want to add to that. The truth is subjective to the person that's perceiving the truth, right? You would tell yourself many, many truths, right? Does it make it right? Does it make it wrong? It doesn't matter. It's your truth, right? The more authentic thing is to realize is that what is the truth of who you are in this world, your authentic self. That's the truth that you have to come to terms with. What is true, what is false. And then you have to hold yourself accountable for the things that you say that aren't true, right?
Right.
And then you're able to move on from there. Now you can go and explore many, many aspects in this world, but only certain things is going to stand true to who you are. So everybody has their own truth. So you know what I'm saying? I cannot say, the truth about Dr. Fred. I cannot say, the truth about anyone. All I can say is the truth about myself. And it's up to you to receive it the way that you want to receive it. But it does not change what my truth is.
Exactly. Tony, I got to take a minute. I'll be right back.
All right. Sounds good. You guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the comments and everything. Bring on some more questions, people. This is an amazing conversation. We only got a few more minutes left in this conversation. So by all means, please keep bringing the comments and the questions and get them answered right here and there. We got Dr. Fred Moss up here, and this man is an expert in his field. And so this is what we're here for, to have these conversations, to put it out there. But yes, thank you guys very, very much for tuning in. It means so much more, so much to me. So as we wait, put on some more questions for us. You know what I'm saying? Leave some comments for us. So for you guys, just a brief recap of what we're talking about, what we have been talking about. We've been talking about the mental health. We've been talking about people being put on medications that don't really need to be put on medications when they go into the mental health for treatment and things like that. How important communication is when helping people move through these things, but also the reality of, you know, the world that we live in, and being able to accept that it's okay to be depressed. It's okay to have high anxiety. This is the world that we live in. And so Dr. Fred is back right now. We're gonna dive into some more of this conversation before he has to jump off. Dr. Fred, thank you, man. I was just recapping on what we was talking about earlier.
You. Yeah. Cool.
And things like that. So when we talk about the world that we live in with AI right now, there's a lot of people that are afraid of what AI is capable of doing, the jobs that are going to be lost, the lives that are, you know, and there are people that are excited about it too, because it can enhance people's lives and things like that. What's your thoughts on that?
The future of AI is hard to predict. This is the most powerful thing that we've ever run into in this lifetime, period.
Yes.
It should be more compared to like the discovery of fire. Like it's at that level. It's more than, in some ways, it's more than nuclear power. It's more than the internet. It's more than automobiles. It's more than all that. It's a force that we never, ever, ever could have understood or imagined. Now, the truth is science fiction pointed to things like this. If you look at even HAL in 2001, we start looking at, you know, all the many different science fiction writers who pointed to something called artificial intelligence in the future. Mm-hmm. But the impact that this particular thing is about to have on the world is beyond belief. And what it already has, the power that it already has, I see why people are terrified that they might lose their jobs or be replaced or have an entirely different definition of what it means to be human. And you start looking at how, if it goes in a particular trajectory, human beings become irrelevant. It's not that hard to see how human beings as a race become irrelevant entirely, not even necessary to move these machines at all, which then could like take over and get everything that needs to get done. Right. So the annihilation of humanity is a possibility. It's a non-negligible possibility, meaning it's not a 0% chance. It's not 0%. It's some percentage chance that could happen. But you also point to the other aspect of AI, which is critical, which is it also has every solution to any problem that's presently going on in humanity can be addressed through AI. And that includes everything, by the way. That includes racism. That includes sex trafficking. That includes climate change. It includes all the medicine problems, all the issues and legalities. It includes hunger. It includes many, many different things. And the solutions seem to be, it's not that hard to imagine that the solution to all of humanity's problems also sits inside of this ridiculously powerful species that we just birthed. Here's one thing I know. The impact of AI on mental health will be extremely disruptive. Already is extremely disruptive. Not only will it create, you know, we're going to be asking machines to declare what kind of human is normal. What?
Yes.
We're going to be asking machines to tell us what a normal human being is.
Yeah.
That is beyond absurd.
Yes, I totally agree. Like, what does machine have any concept of what it's like to be human? It's never been human before. You know,
it's never been human, but it's about to take on a life of its own. You know, some people like, does it already meet the definition of being a sentient being? You know, in many ways, it has many of the characteristics and its own level of consciousness. It's just different than humans. I have these 3 cats, right? I have 3 cats running around my house right now. They have consciousness. I'm telling you, they're guilty when they're guilty. They feel blame when they're blamed. They know how to
I
tease each
agree.
other. Like cats, they know that shit. They know what it's like. They know how to think. They know
I
how to
already
plan,
know it.
right? But they don't think like
Yeah.
humans. They don't think like us, not really. But when a cat is imagining like how it's going to take on each other, or how it's going to jump to the top of the couch, or how it's going to, when it's going to eat. I have a cat that sits on the stairs, and when I'm coming up the stairs, he doesn't even move because he knows I can see him, and he trusts that I'm going to step over him. And he's right. He's right. But how does he know that I can see him and that everything's going to be okay? Because he's a cat. That's why. And cats think differently than humans. You could say that the difference between cats and humans is similar to the difference between humans and artificial intelligence. We don't know how the damn thing thinks, but it's got its own way of thinking for sure. And it has a capacity to completely alter the world. We are now the second smartest beings on the world all of a sudden. We are no longer the most intelligent being on the world. That's for sure. AI is way more intelligent than us.
Yes, I totally agree. But that also brings up the other categories, right? Like and I know you got to jump off, so I'm going to try to be very brief and things like that. But it also comes to the reality of when we're swimming in the ocean, right? We're no longer at the top of the food chain. We got everything else in the ocean that could take us out, right? Because we're out of our element. We're best in our element on land. When we're in the sky flying planes and things like that, we're dependent on the pilot being very intelligent and comprehensive enough to fly this airplane safely. We dependent on them, right? But if something was to come out of the woodwork, say for instance, a dragon or something, we now have lost that control. We are no longer the most intelligent things in the sky, right?
That's right.
We're out of our element. It's just like AI. When it comes down to AI, as much as we like to say that we have that the people who are inventing it or creating it is in control, it's out of our element. They've already proven that AI can learn 100 times faster than us, right? Hell, 1,000,000 times faster than us. It's a consistently learning being, and I say that with small skepticism. And the reason why I say that is because at some point we can unplug it unless it figures out a way to back it up and be able to transfer it to somewhere else.
You can't, Tony, don't fool yourself. It can't be. It's long past being unplugged. It's long.
See, there we go. That's why I said with small skepticism. So I learned something, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm okay with that. But if we're long past that point, the key, I guess the question is that how do we live with AI without AI controlling everything that we live?
It's going to take something, man. Unification. It's going to take something. It's going to take. You know what it really takes? It's an inside-out job. Be the very best person you know how to be right this second, because this is all we have.
Yes.
There's shit coming. There's shit coming down, Tony. There's shit coming down.
I'm already knowing, man. Brother, I'm already knowing, and I know that you got to get off and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But we have to do another conversation, man.
Let's do another one
talking with you. So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, the best way to find me is at drfred360.com or my website at welcometohumanity.net. You can also at drfred360.com. You can get access to a bunch of freebies, including the Audible of my books and, PDFs and all sorts of little projects, as well as the podcasts that I've been on. And I really like that site to learn a little bit about me. But if you really want to learn about the history of Welcome to Humanity and how we got to be who we are, my main website used to be welcometohumanity.net. You can learn a lot about my philosophy there. So thank you, Tony. And I'm found, and of course, I'm on social media like everyone else, and I can be found on Facebook.
Of course, and that's the part of our lives, right? His links will be down below, fellas. So please go check him out. You know what I'm saying? If you love this conversation, please go check him out. And check out his YouTube channel. I'm subscribed over there as well, so I do check out his content. Very intelligent man. love his content. I'm thinking you guys will too if you love this conversation. And with that being said, Dr. Fred, thank you for being on the show today.
Tony, thanks for having me. Really good, though.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the great conversation as well. Look forward to having you on again and talking about some more things. And for everybody else, if it's your first time and you haven't already, do me a favor, go over to the YouTube channel, give us a subscribe, hit that bell notification, let us know that you guys so you guys be notified every time we drop a new episode. And leave us a comment. Share it with people that you think that can benefit from these conversations. And with that being said, you guys, thank you. Have a blessed Sunday. And we look forward to our next up-and-coming episode. We're going to keep bringing it. So thank you guys for all the love and support. Peace.